just days after Republicans in the House made it clear that Donald Trump attacking our NATO allies or Greenland was their line in the sand. Donald Trump has decided to dance all over that line in his latest post. He seems to not care about the threats coming from the House, because he is moving forward with threats of his own. And they should. If the Republicans who claim to have a spine actually do this time, trigger an impeachment that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way and supporting our work. Now, banking on Republicans having a spine is certainly not something that would give you a lot of returns in the past when it comes to Donald Trump. But if we can trust what Don Bacon said right here before we get into this post, things look really bad for Donald Trump, considering the announcement that he just took against Greenland and against NATO.
I think a lot of the stuff about invading Greenland, he says, I believe it's really being done for negotiating effect, but he says it almost every day. So I feel like people like me and others, we got to speak up and say it's wrong. You don't threaten a NATO ally. They've been a great ally. We've had bases on there since World War II. Denmark has fought with us by our side in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I feel like it's incumbent on folks like me to speak up and say that these threats and bullying of an ally are wrong. And just on the weird chance that he's serious about invading Greenland, I want to let him know that it would probably be the end of his presidency. Most Republicans know this is immoral and wrong, and we're going to stand up against it.
So what would happen if he decided to use military force to take over Greenland?
Well, I think one way or the other way, whether it's even Republican control or if it's Democrat control after November, I think it would lead to impeachment. I think it's invading ally, to me, is a high crime and misdemeanor. And we have a treaty. We have the NATO agreement and it would be basically severing this whole agreement and invading an ally, a democracy.
The only thing that makes me more confident in what Don Bacon is saying is the fact that he is retiring from Congress and that he was on the verge of resigning. As it's been widely reported, after Donald Trump and Steve Witkoff gave a playbook of how to negotiate with Donald Trump to the Russians. A playbook, gave them talking points, and then took the plan that they wanted and called it their own. Caroline Leavitt tried to walk it back. Marco Rubio tried to walk it back. But of course, we know Donald Trump is in the pocket of Putin, and that is what almost got Don Bacon, who is retiring anyways, to resign from Congress. And we know that Mike Johnson's majority continues to grow smaller and smaller. It's barely a majority at this point. It's kind of a major. It's a major. It's not even a majority. You can't even finish the word. But Donald Trump right now has listened to Don Bacon, and he decided, I'll make a little joke about what I'm hearing from Republicans. And it followed up with a post that he made. But this is what he said yesterday before it, kind of teeing it up.
7 times more than they would have to pay by raising their drug, like 7 times. This wasn't like a little bit more, 7 times more. And I may do that for Greenland too. I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security. So I may do that. I'll give you a little, I'll take you out of that. In fact, that'll end up being the story. But actually, this is a much bigger story because we're reducing healthcare by numbers that you have.
The Tariff King, that is a great way to respond to the criticism that your power is going unchecked, and should be by even your own party, to say that you're the Tariff King and that you will respond to nations that are our allies. Now let's remember, Donald Trump, as we're going to get into after this post, is currently at war with not just his Republican Party, but his Republican. And I'm going to call them Republican, because that's what they are. Justice is on the Supreme Court arguing in favor of his tariffs. And of course, tariffs are supposed to be used for protections of our national security. Donald Trump is using them to make himself money and grift. But that is important to keep in mind, not just for this post that Donald Trump made, but the implications of this on the Supreme Court's decision that is coming soon. But this was the post, the very long post that Donald Trump just made, that should, considering what Don Bacon said, trigger a Republican impeachment. Donald Trump wrote in a really long Truth Social post, so buckle up. We have subsidized Denmark and the rest of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other form of remuneration. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace is at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, and there is not a thing that Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. Only the United States of America under President Donald J. Trump can play in this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for safety, security, and survival of our planet. These countries, who are playing this very dangerous game, have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative, in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Finland will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. The tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for a good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapon systems, both offensive and defensive, the need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the dome, including for the possible protection of Canada. And this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles, meets and bounds. If this land is included in it, the United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and/or any of these countries that have put so much at risk despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection over so many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. There is so much to get into. But I think the most important thing to address is the troops that Donald Trump is referring to that are putting the United States in a difficult position that Donald Trump sees as a threat. Those are NATO troops on a regular training exercise in Greenland? Sure, NATO is making it clear to Donald Trump that he doesn't need to start a war within NATO. But those troops are not there pointing missiles at the United States of America. This is a training exercise. There are barely any of them. They didn't ship in 100,000 guys to put boots on the ground. But Donald Trump views that, or at least is trying to use that as a threat to justify his threat. Now, the only reason that a president should be using tariffs is for the purpose of national security. It is a tool to impose pain on or sanction countries that we are maybe in a colder war with, right? But Donald Trump sees tariffs as a tool to put the squeeze on anyone who is not playing into his authoritarian project or his gangster state, and who is going to bear the burden for that. Europeans are telling Donald Trump Greenland is not for sale, and he's punishing American consumers with higher prices because of that. But what Donald Trump is doing is escalating conflict, and that is what Don Bacon, whether in those exact words or not, said would be an impeachable offense from Donald Trump. This is a Cold War that he is launching with NATO. And he is saying that he will coerce the Europeans into making sure that Greenland is his. How far away are we from? Physical force will be used because Donald Trump already alluded to the fact that he's not happy with the troops there, that he sees it as a threat against him. Again, a reconnaissance mission. They're there for a regular training exercise, and Donald Trump is trying to use that as a justification for war with Europe over Greenland. We do not want Greenland. We want the Epstein files. We want lower prices. We want to end this housing crisis. We don't want Greenland. There is no purpose. And it's also so ridiculous that Donald Trump talks about Russia and China as these scary threats that we must move as quickly as possible to address and take territory if that's what it requires. At the same time, as he treats Putin like a best buddy, who he's got to roll out the red carpet for who's not, after more land in Ukraine. He's just hanging out. Putin doesn't want more land. He's not gonna invade again. That is what Donald Trump says. He is both telling the world that Putin is simply just hanging out in Ukraine and he's got no broader ambitions for more of Europe. But at the same time, we have to take Greenland. So the same guy who doesn't want to invade further, his neighbor wants to steal Greenland. That is the type of mental gymnastics that Donald Trump is going through. It's time for some force, and that is why Don Bacon, if you are serious, you should act on that impeachment now before it's too late. You should make it very clear what Donald Trump is doing is illegal, because it is. You need more Republicans to come forward with that threat, because we know what the next step is. It is force. But I think it is important that we understand this in the context of what the Supreme Court is moving to do. And that's what Lawrence O'Donnell broke down right here.
And just 12 hours after Donald Trump's electoral humiliation last night, in the United States Supreme Court this morning, Donald Trump was humiliated again when the Supreme Court, including the justices who Donald Trump appointed, ripped apart the biggest and stupidest policy lie of the Trump second term. At 11:22 a.m., when Neil Katyal rose to address the Supreme Court, the first sentence he spoke contained only 3 words: tariffs are taxes. And there it was, the pure economic truth and policy truth about tariffs.
Donald Trump may post and say he is, but he is not the tariff king. He does not have ultimate power over everything. He cannot tax Americans, and he cannot go to war if he wants. This is just not the case. And Republicans, if they care, which is hard to bank on, that need to make that very clear. I know they're not all going to, but there are a select few who might. And I gotta at least hold out a tiny bit of hope for that. Because Don Bacon, you said it, so shut the fuck up. And we are going to continue to talk about that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let him silence you until next time. I'll see you soon.